So we were planning on talking about this idea of a world that works for everyone. It is actually not the last Sunday, is it? Do we have one more? One more, I thought. August kind of just goes on and on, doesn't it? And so the second to last Sunday in a month has been dedicated to that topic. And then we decided to go ahead and take off the shelf this summer camp for the soul concept that we've been kind of cooking up all summer, and thought, well, gosh, it needs to happen in the summer. And so Mary Beth Rim, we're going to talk about her some more in a little bit, is leading our workshop this afternoon. It has to do with being at a crossroads. And of course, one of the things that comes up when a person is at a crossroads is what's my purpose? What am I here for? It used to be that we called those the big questions, and we were forbidden to ask them or begged not to, right? Oh, please don't ask the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And what does it all mean? And now we realize that they are central to our well-being, to purposeful living. And so I decided to come up with this equation now, and if you were to look at it on a board, it would say life purpose plus sign, bold action equals sign, a world that works for everyone. Life purpose plus bold action equals a world that works for everyone. Okay, that sounds pretty snazzy. So we're saying that when people know who they are and then they act on that, we end up with a really neat world that's made up of people who know who they are, and what they're doing is related to that. And that's pretty cool. Okay, so how do you get there? So there are a lot of people offering guidance as to how to discover your life purpose. And boy, Jean Houston is absolutely one of those, is she not? We've all been to seminars and workshops and read self-help books and gosh knows what else, and learned a lot from Oprah and whomever about this. And Deepak Chopra, teaming up with Oprah Winfrey a couple of years ago in one of the 21-day meditation challenges, spoke of the law of Dharma, D-H-A-R-M-A, or life purpose. And he suggested 3 steps to get us to that place of knowing what that is. And the truth is, 2 steps get you there, and the 3rd one is about the action. So the first step that Chopra suggests that we take in order to discover who we are, because we want the first half of that equation, life purpose. Otherwise, we can't take the bold action if we don't know where we're going, now can we? So the first part, he says, is to get to know your true self. And isn't that funny? Because so many years past, we've been told that that's sort of a frivolous pursuit. And now we're learning how important it is. So the first part of identifying your purpose is to get to know yourself. And the funny thing, too, is that we probably didn't spend a lot of time doing that since we sort of followed that path of growing up and focusing on things that were more important, more serious, right? So we look way back to probably that time in our lives before we got all concerned with the whole world in our heads. We just knew. We just knew. We knew a lot of things. We had big dreams and big visions and big plans. So anyway, Chopra is saying one way to get in touch with your true purpose is to get to know yourself better and to find out who you truly are. And so we give ourselves permission, either just sort of in a general way at this time in our lives, or maybe specifically by taking a class or coming to a place like this, reading a book. Maybe you have an accountability buddy. Maybe you're doing some coaching. Maybe you're masterminding. But somehow there is an agreement to delve, and you create, a very popular word these days, a container for safe exploration, for trust, for vulnerability, for growth, for discovery, for understanding. And that's what this community does. So we have this idea. Our first assignment is to find out who we truly are. Well, one of the ways that we do that here, and so many others do on other spiritual paths as well, is through meditation. And it's also through just being alone and being quiet, being still. You don't have to really sit in any particular position for this to work. Because this has to do with who you are beyond what kind of body you have and what kind of folding it will or will not do. Okay? It is just the essence of you. And like I said, when you were a kid, you probably knew it, but you didn't know that it was anything in particular. That was just how you thought of yourself before you learned to sort of bring it in a little bit. So it might be that you sit in a special position or in a special chair in a special room. You may even have rituals around that. You may light a candle or ring a bell or burn an incense or play a certain type of music. Do all of those or none of them. But there will be something that you can do that says to the rest of the world, just like Rick was saying at the beginning of this meditation, as if every one of those busy thoughts was a child and you said, sit in a circle and we're going to have a silent story now. Some of you may do what I do too when there are so many ideas floating around. I write them down and I know that they will be there later for me. But I write them down and that gives my mind permission to let them go. So the first step in this equation, which is getting to know our true self, is of course to give ourselves permission to make the choice, to make the time and the space to take it, to say yes to it. That's the part that's a little complex because we have a busy life. We have relationships with people. We have things we said we'd do and places we said we'd be and all kinds of stuff going on. And we get into the point where we really believe there is no time. So the first one is to make the decision and to create space and put it on your calendar. And if you use an electronic calendar, let it remind you. Some of you know that I have used that method of Google Calendar reminding me that I promised myself I would do something for me. And it worked. Because now I do that thing regularly and I don't need it on my calendar anymore. Sometimes, if you share one with someone else, it helps them to know what you're doing. Right? And that's the other thing, that once you make that choice to get to know your true self in whatever way that you choose to do it, it's probably best to tell other people that you have an appointment instead of, well, I have an appointment to get to know my true self. Because some people will support you and a lot of them will say, well, gosh, don't you know there's so much to be done. We don't have time for that and that's silly and whatever. So you just say, I have an appointment. When we get to that place, by whatever means, that knowingness, the answer to that question, who am I really, is already there. Ernest Holmes, our founder, says that nature waits upon man's discovery. That it isn't out there. We know, we've heard by now. It's not out there. It's in here. And there is no special one way or method to access it. The point is to be willing to make ourselves available to it. And when we do that, there's this beautiful, familiar feeling. Oh, my goodness, it feels like a homecoming. It may not be instantaneous. You may have some very comical experiences of sitting there waiting for a sign, something to happen. And all that does is your leg falls asleep, or the candle blows out, or the phone rings. Don't stop. Whatever it is, however you choose to get there, know that that answer to who am I truly is within you, awaiting your discovery. And from the point of view of this teaching, what we say is the reason that it doesn't chase you down and knock at your door and say, hey, I'm you, and in a way it kind of does because it shows up in all of your circumstances getting your attention. But the reason that it doesn't really chase you down is because you have to discover it when you're ready. And that would be the best time, wouldn't it? Okay, so the second part of the equation is bold action. Well, interestingly enough, there are two other steps. No, excuse me, there's one other step that Deepak Chopra talks about that's going to help you understand or discover what kind of action you're going to take. Because you don't jump from, I know who I am, into action. There's a thing in between. There's a thing in between. We invite people when they come in the door to fill out a blue card, and we say, what lights you up? Where does your power lie? What interests you? And you know why we want to know that? We actually want to know that because we want to be able to identify you more accurately in this community, and we want to help you ask yourself those questions. See, you have to think about it for a moment. Well, gee, what does light me up? What's my power? What's my strength? What are my interests? So Deepak Chopra says, identify your gifts and talents. What do you love to do? What do you love to do? Okay? First, know yourself. Second, identify your gifts and talents. And here's what he says to do next. Find a way to do what you love and what you're good at in service to humanity in some way. Find a way to do what you love in such a way that you are meeting the needs and the desires of the people around you in some way. And what happens? What happens is a lot of things. One of the things that happens is that you're doing stuff joyfully, right? You're doing it with so much love. You're having fun. Now, if you grew up in a household where you weren't supposed to whistle while you work, you couldn't giggle while you were washing the dishes because they wouldn't get clean, well, that's a bunch of bunk. Just say thank you and let that go, right? Just one of our students on Tuesday says she learned from, I think it was Dr. Phil or Wayne Dyer, to put that bad idea, that false idea on the conveyor belt and let it just go away. It turns out that the best advice from a spiritual guidance counselor, the one within you, would be to identify what you love to do, what brings you joy, what you are obviously very good at because, hey, you do it with such joy and you love it. What else happens? You produce a great product, whatever that is. It could be cookies, it could be books, it could be coaching, it could be, I don't know, it could be anything. It could be an educational product or an entertainment one or a transportation one, whatever it is. It involves your fascination, your love, your gifts, your talents, your interests, your calling. And then what happens for the other person, all of the people receiving that, whatever it is they are, we use the word around here, blessed too. They're blessed too. Think about this. When you go to a restaurant and you have someone prepare you a meal, would you like it to be prepared with love by someone who loves cooking? Yeah. Would you like it to be prepared in haste by someone who hates their job? Not really. Do you think those two meals look different and taste different? And guess what else? Those two meals produce a different flow of financial good as well. So Chopra is saying, if you will take the time to discover your true self, and if you will then identify what you love to do and what you're really good at, and then find a way to put it into motion, bold action, serving the people around you in some way, abundance will flow effortlessly in your life. It will flow effortlessly. Excellent. So bold action. Our workshop this afternoon is about being at a crossroad in your life. Sometimes we call it crossroads, plural. Because there are two, even though it's one thing, it's a combination of two roads. So what about this whole thing of taking the bold action? You've heard the thing that if you get in the car and you start the engine and you start driving, it would be a really good idea to know where you're going. Otherwise, you'll have one of those bumper stickers that says, I may be lost, but I'm making very good time. You ever seen that one? It's important to know where we're going before we start moving. And that's why these things are in this order. Know yourself. Know what you love. Then what happens is a direction comes together. And what happens is an idea comes, or several. And people start to coalesce around you. Circumstances start to line up, too. And everything that you need to build that building, or produce that product, or distribute it, or find clients or customers, or buyers for your cookies, or an angel investor for your bakery, or whatever it is, they show up. You get to stay in that place of enthusiasm, of joy. Grasp that vision and keep it up here. And that's part of what we all do together, because this isn't magic, and it doesn't happen overnight, and we forget, so we come together to remember. So you end up at this place, and my refrigerator is covered with magnets that say things like, leap and the net will appear, right? Go confidently in the direction of your dreams, Thoreau. Go out on a limb, that's where the fruit is. And who was that? That was a famous baseball player. No, it was Will Rogers. Okay. And so on. Okay? Oh, yes, I have a Buddhist one that says fall down 7 times, get up 8. Okay? It doesn't have to be exactly 7 and 8. Always get up one more time, then you fall down. Whether you look at examples in nature of baby birds, whether they like it or not, they're apparently ready to learn how to fly, right? And so they get pushed out of the nest by daddy bird. Or whether it's you at a crossroad in your life, realizing that what you have been doing is complete and there must be something else. There's this beautiful period where we have to have trust, where we have to have faith. We know we have the famous example of Indiana Jones when he's got, people chasing him, and the only way to safety is to go that way, but there's this giant abyss. And he finally has this classic moment where he steps out first, and there is nothing apparent to step onto. And as soon as he does, a transparent surface appears beneath his foot that he can stand on, right? That's trust. Trust in action. So all of those refrigerator magnets and all of those sayings are telling us that there comes a time in life when we have to move. In nature, when things are complete, they release their form, and everything that they were made up of returns to source, if you will, for the next blueprint, the next assignment, the next idea, the next plan, next fulfillment. It's all the same stuff. We cannot avoid the fact that the forms in our lives, of our relationships, of the work that we're doing, of whatever we're up to, reach a point, at some point, of completion. And then we get to let them go. You've heard me, many of you share Dr. Christiane Northrup, who's on the cover of the September issue of Science of Mind magazine. She talks about when the cafeteria shuts down. I think I even mentioned it last week. And there's this period of not knowing. And you have to go without knowing. You have this quickening, which feels like, this isn't working. What's wrong? I like where I was. It was so familiar. But something in life says you have to go. That's because we can't camp out. We can't live at the crossroad. We can't live on the precipice, the skinny branch. We can't live there. That is a point of choice. That is a point of trust. That is a point where we don't know how it's going to turn out. We do not have any guarantees. That's the only guarantee we do have. But what happens next, when we take that bold action, is that we discover, just like the baby, That there was a world, there was a room, right? There were parties and gifts, and there were talks about what name to give you. You know, there's all this preparation that's been going on in a part of life that we can't see yet. You know, a part of life that we can't see yet that is saying, oh, here she comes. Here he comes. That's just the way it is. So you see, if you take life action, and life purpose, and you add bold action, you end up experiencing a world for yourself that is the best that it can be, that works for you. And when we tap into the capital T truth of who we are, and make that our agenda, and we make that our set of values and priorities, we make that the core of our goals, and then we take action, and say, well, like the fool. There's the classic fool who does not know and smiles and takes that step. When we do that, it all turns out perfectly. And the reason that it does is because we did all of that based on truth. When we do it based on falsehood, we get different results. So why not? Why not go back to the beginning and get reacquainted with who we truly are? Whatever you do, take a walk, but whatever it is, some time with just you and your Creator by whatever name you choose to call. Who am I? What makes my heart sing? What brings me joy? What am I good at? And then go out there and do it in some way that brings a gift of service to others. It meets a need. And then you can market it, right? Then you can tell people you exist. Then you know just what to say. And they'll show up. And you'll both be blessed. That's how you create a world that works for everyone. Isn't that awesome? Awesome. Okay. So I'm just going to close this with one more affirmative prayer, because why not? Let's do that. Let's bring it home. Let's anchor it. Let's take it with us. I know that there is one energy in this universe, one power, one presence, one substance, one activity, one thing going on. I know that it is the truth of all life, and of your life and my life now. Because this is so, I recognize that every aspect of my life and your life is blessed. That there is something within me and within you that already knows everything. And certainly knows who I am, who you are. It also knows who we've come here to be. Because the divine impulsion of love itself says, I must take form. I must have expression. I must know myself as all of these beautiful emanations. And so the love within us shows up as that urge to be more, to express more, to experience love. And all of the substance necessary for that formation is called around this idea to flesh it out and to make it real. This is the truth of the original creation and of the creative process which is constantly going on. And so it is with a grateful heart that I know that each of us has a true identity, has true gifts and talents, has true purpose, and that the avenue, the means of this action, and the beautiful results of it are already assured. They're already provided. In gratitude for these gifts and all of the beautiful ways that they show up, and for this world that therefore works for everyone, I give thanks. I let it be so. And together as we open our eyes, we say, and so it is.